So I'm going to illustrate the two types of hanging systems. First, there is L brackets like this. Note the wire on the end here. You should never cut the wire on any of these brackets. But it's a simple L bracket with a hole in it. And I'm going to just use this stick to illustrate. If this is your wall, and your artwork's going to hang on this side, you're going to stick this behind the wall board. Okay, this works for any of the spaces with the brown fabric walls. But if you have a track, you should use the brackets that fit into the track system. So this is meant for the space right by the top of the stairs, as well as the spaces in the lower hallway. The other spaces will hold a bracket that looks like this. But first, I want to illustrate what an L bracket should have on it. It's going to have wire that goes through it. These should be already wired for you. Okay, but basically, it's a 6-foot length of wire that's just wrapped through the hole and twisted at the top. Something like this. Okay, and what you have to do is you have to just put the wire through the wire on the back of your frame at the right height. So this is a little bit harder to adjust, but it's a lot quicker to put up on the wall because you just slip this behind the wall bracket. When you're done with it, and this is how you should find all the pieces, is it should just be wrapped kind of like this around the wire, and that way the next person can quickly and easily use it. And part of the reason we never cut these wires is just because your piece is really big and you can use a smaller wire, doesn't mean that the next person doesn't need a wire that comes all the way down to 58 inches from the floor. So what you're going to do is when you're done setting it up, you're going to take the wire and just wrap it around, make a kind of a loop at the back of the frame. I think it's easier to illustrate with this set of wires, but basically you just want the wire to, you can kind of wrap it around your fingers and then essentially wrap it in on itself, okay? And that will make the excess wire really small, and so that it won't be visible. So something like that. And you just stick this behind your frame then, and you know the clip basically for this one, the clip looks like this. You need an Allen wrench to adjust the bolt here. When the bolt is loose, this will slide easily up and down. Once you have it to the right height, you just swing, you put your wire in here, and you can swing this in, and this will help hold the wire in, and tighten that bolt down. If your piece is an inch or two too high or low, you just loosen or tighten the bolt, raise it up, and then retighten the bolt, and you're good to go. So this one's much easier to work with. I should illustrate, though, the top. So the top here is basically, this bracket is going to feed in. This would be the top of it, okay? And you're going to slide this in. There's going to be the track system. You're going to slide it in from either the side or one of the gaps. So use that type of wire whenever there is actually a track system. So that's the A, B, and I believe G, which is right by the computer lab. Use those. And there's only about 10 or 15 of those wires. So it might be that someone uses all of those wires and then the next person has to use the L brackets. But there's 50 or so of these L brackets, so that should be more than enough. Okay, so important thing, don't ever cut the wires. The other thing about this one is this bracket is really hard to feed that wire through that hole. So this is a freshly cut end, and I had to do that in order to get this bracket back on. So please make sure these never fall off, and tighten them down when you are done, you know, when you take them down. And then when you put them away, you're gonna basically take that spool like that, and you're gonna want it to go all the way up. So the L brackets are nice and clean like that, and the rest of these, this will take me just a minute to do, but I'm going to just take them and I'm going to wrap around about 3 fingers all the way up to the top, and then take the end and I'm going to tuck it in on itself. So this is all so the next person doesn't have a real pain in the ass job, you know, pulling out finding all the wires that they need, and setting up their show. So I know it takes you time to actually do this when you're done, but it will take the next person twice the time to undo knots if you don't properly wrap these. So please wrap them nicely, and when you're done, they all need to go back into this kit, or there's actually two of these kits, but you can see how that's nice and organized, and I can just stick it into one of these bins. I could stack a couple on top of each other, that's fine. Same with the L brackets. The L brackets need a little bit more space, but you could stack 5 or 6 into a little space like that. And the more organized these kits stay, the easier it is for the next student to set up their show. Okay, so I thought I should illustrate how these go into the track. You're going to need a ladder in order to do this. But basically, there's the little bracket, and here's how it goes in the track. Okay, those two little prongs sticking down. And those are great because you can then just grab them and slide them. Now, at some point in many of these, there's a gap, but I find it easiest to drop it in from the side. If you're going to slide them left to right and there's a gap, let me move my ladder. Okay, so here's a gap. What you're going to encounter is that they're going to get hung up on this gap, right? So it's best to count and feed. So feed them when there is a gap. This bracket, I should say, see how it wiggles? It's not incredibly secure, right? There's screws up here. It's held in, but it wiggles a little. So when you're putting it through, I would suggest feed left and feed from the right, and then have, whatever number you need in the middle track, just go carefully through the gaps. Okay, now for the L brackets, you'll see you just put it to the brick and slide it down, right? And the weight's going to pull down on the wire, and that's not going to go anywhere. They're fairly easy to slide as well, okay? But you need to be, pretty close on where you need them or where you want them, so space them out nicely. Now the other thing I should note is that some students in the past have found it easier to put these S hooks in to grip the wire on your piece. See how there's a little extra wire? Let's keep that extra wire so that you can adjust the S hook. And this is just spun. Let's see if I can get that to focus. This is just spun so that it's pretty easy to undo and move the S hook up and down. What you'll find though is that the wire is gonna, it's gonna bounce up. See, if I put weight on it, it goes down to here. But if I let go of it, it comes up to here. So you need to kind of put a little weight on it to know what height it's actually at before you put the S hook on. And the other thing that I tend to do, once I have my pieces spaced out about where I want them, there's a set of these T-pins. So one thing you could do is just put a T-pin in every, however many inches the center of your piece would be, spacing them out. But the other thing that you'll need, possibly, is to take a set of T-pins. If your wire isn't perfect, or if the wire is sort of swaying back and forth, if you take a T-pin and you kind of grab the wire is going to stay in place. So you can make sure that piece is centered. Or if the wire isn't, piece needs to go to right or left a little bit, you can just put a T-pin in to move it over. And that same idea would work for these little guys. When you have a S hook and you want to get it, oh, see, there's already an S hook there. But if you want the S hook to hang down where it needs to be, right? So I'm going to take a T-pin, pull it down. Gotta do this two hands. And I'll stick a T-pin in here to hold it. And now it's going to stay, well, it moves a little bit. I guess I could put it right on the S hook. But that way I can get it at the right height and have it hold. And that way I have it, I can put all my hooks exactly where I think the center of where the wire is going to be on each piece, and make my measurements.